In 1923, Los Angeles issued permits for roughly 25,000 new homes, nearly 70 houses every single day. Entire hillsides were being dynamited flat for subdivisions. Hollywood studios were expanding so aggressively that Los Angeles became one of the largest active construction zones in America. The movie industry did not simply arrive in Los Angeles. It forced the city to physically rebuild itself at industrial scale. I used AI to take you through the rebuilding process, so let's get started. By the early 1920s, Los Angeles was constructing entire neighborhoods faster than most American cities could pave streets. Between 1920 and 1930, the population surged from roughly 577,000 to more than 1.2 million people. To absorb that growth, developers launched massive suburban construction operations across the basin. Streets were surveyed first, then grading crews reshaped the terrain, followed by sewer installation, water mains, electrical lines, sidewalks, and finally rows of near-identical houses built simultaneously by separate framing crews. Hollywood accelerated all of it. By 1920, at least 8 major studios, including Paramount, Universal, Fox, Warner Brothers, and MGM, had established permanent production facilities in Los Angeles. These were giant industrial compounds requiring constant physical expansion. Universal's lot covered hundreds of acres. Studio carpenters constructed entire streets inside sound stages, while exterior crews permanently expanded Western towns, European plazas, and urban backlots across outdoor sets. Each movie required physical architecture. Every historical epic meant new columns, new staircases, new facades, new towers, new interiors. Hollywood was now consuming construction materials at enormous speed. When synchronized sound arrived in 1927 with The Jazz Singer, Hollywood had to rebuild its studios almost overnight. Studios across Los Angeles rapidly constructed new enclosed sound stages using steel frames, reinforced concrete, and insulated walls. At the same time, backlots expanded into permanent artificial neighborhoods with Western towns, city streets, and European-style buildings constantly being rebuilt and modified between productions. Hollywood was no longer simply filming inside Los Angeles. It was physically constructing a parallel version of the city beside it. No developer shaped Hollywood's built environment more than Charles E. Toberman. By the late 1920s, Toberman had developed 29 commercial buildings, launched 53 subdivisions, and formed more than 30 real estate companies. His projects physically transformed Hollywood Boulevard from a residential corridor into an entertainment district dominated by monumental architecture. His most influential construction project was Grauman's Egyptian Theater. Built in 1922, the theater took roughly 18 months to complete and cost approximately $800,000, an enormous figure at the time. The theater seated 1,771 people and required giant steel roof trusses to create a clear-span auditorium without obstructing columns. The building's exterior used reinforced concrete covered in Egyptian revival ornament. Workers carved hieroglyphic-style reliefs directly into the facade, while decorative courtyards and columns transformed the theater into a permanent fantasy environment. Then Toberman built something even more ambitious. Grauman's Chinese Theater opened in May 1927, after another 18-month construction period costing around $2 million. Massive coral red columns supported the pagoda entrance. Temple bells, decorative stone dogs, and imported Chinese architectural elements were shipped across the Pacific specifically for the project. Sculptors carved dragons and decorative motifs into the concrete facade, while craftsmen covered interiors with imported textiles, bronze fixtures, and elaborate murals. The forecourt became famous after Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks pressed their hands and footprints into wet cement on April 30th, 1927. Accidentally creating one of Hollywood's longest-lasting traditions. The theater was engineered like a movie set scaled up into permanent architecture. During the 1920s, the intersection of Hollywood and Vine became one of the busiest construction corridors in Los Angeles. The Taft Building opened in 1923 as Hollywood's first major high-rise office tower. Steel beams were riveted together floor by floor, while cranes lifted stone and terracotta cladding into place around the frame. The structure became headquarters space for studios, producers, and the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Then came the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel in 1927. The hotel used reinforced concrete framing combined with Spanish colonial revival detailing, arched arcades, tiled roofs, decorative balconies, and large open courtyards. Investors included Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, Sid Grauman, and Louis B. Mayer, all wanting a luxury structure capable of functioning as Hollywood's social headquarters. The Blossom Ballroom inside the hotel later hosted the first Academy Awards ceremony on May 16, 1929, where 270 guests attended and tickets cost $5 each. Nearby commercial construction accelerated rapidly. Restaurants, bars, offices, theaters, and hotels clustered around the district. Marquee signs extended over sidewalks. Neon tubing wrapped building facades. Decorative towers pierced above the city's height restrictions through loopholes allowing ornamental structures. Hollywood Boulevard was no longer a street. It had become a continuous architectural performance. Los Angeles developed differently from New York or Chicago because of one law. In 1905, the city imposed a strict 150-foot building height limit, roughly equivalent to 13 stories. Officials claimed the restriction improved earthquake safety and preserved visual harmony across the city. The result completely changed how Los Angeles was physically constructed. Instead of skyscraper canyons, the city spread horizontally. Commercial structures stretched across entire blocks rather than climbing vertically. Wide boulevards replaced dense downtown streets. Parking garages and automobile entrances became major architectural features. Developers built miles instead of height. Then the city exempted itself from its own law. Construction on Los Angeles City Hall began in 1926 and finished in 1928. Designed by John Parkinson, John C. Austin, and Albert C. Martin Sr., the tower rose to 454 feet with 32 floors, making it the tallest building in Los Angeles for nearly 4 decades. The structure used reinforced concrete construction over deep foundations engineered for seismic stability. Builders mixed sand from all 58 California counties and water from each of the state's 21 historic missions into the concrete tower. The stepped crown was modeled after the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. When City Hall opened on April 26, 1928, more than 32,000 Angelenos, 200 mayors, 150 floats, and 34 marching bands participated in dedication ceremonies downtown. For decades afterward, City Hall dominated the skyline almost alone because the height restriction prevented competitors from rising nearby. After the 1925 Paris Exposition, Los Angeles entered one of the largest Art Deco construction booms in the United States. Hollywood embraced the style because it already looked cinematic. Architects combined steel frame construction with decorative terracotta cladding that could be mass-produced and rapidly installed onto facades. Instead of carving stone manually, factories produced geometric decorative panels that crews attached directly onto skyscraper frames. Bullock's Wilshire became one of the earliest masterpieces. Completed in 1929, the building rose 241 feet, technically surpassing the city's height restriction through a loophole permitting decorative towers. The structure used reinforced concrete and steel framing covered with green copper detailing and terracotta panels. Most importantly, it was designed for automobiles. Instead of placing the main entrance on Wilshire Boulevard, architects built a grand rear carport, allowing wealthy customers to drive directly into the building. By 1928, Los Angeles already had roughly 1 automobile for every 2.9 residents, forcing architecture to adapt around car traffic. Then came the Eastern Columbia Building in 1930. Workers completed the structure in only 9 months. Bright turquoise terracotta tiles covered the exterior, while gold detailing and neon lighting wrapped the clock tower at the top. The Wiltern Theater and Pellisier Building followed in 1931, adding sculpted interiors, polished metalwork, marble surfaces, and dramatic geometric ceilings. Hollywood craftsmen heavily influenced all of it. That's the detail that got me when I was researching this. I kept finding the same names, the same plaster guys, the same scenic painters, listed on studio payrolls and then showing up on permits for actual buildings across the city. Hollywood wasn't influencing LA architecture. It was literally the same people. The city itself began looking theatrical. In 1923, developers constructing a 500-acre subdivision in the Hollywood Hills erected an enormous sign reading, "Hollywood Land." It was intended as temporary advertising. The structure used timber framing, steel supports, telephone poles, and sheet metal panels anchored directly into steep hillside terrain. Each letter stood approximately 30 feet tall and measured around 43 feet wide. Crews hauled construction materials up dirt access roads before assembling the framework directly onto the ridge. Then electricians installed roughly 4,000 light bulbs across the letters so the sign would glow at night in flashing sequences. The billboard could reportedly be seen for miles across the basin, but the structure deteriorated rapidly during the Great Depression. Maintenance stopped after 1929. Timber supports rotted, metal warped, and sections collapsed during the 1940s. In 1949, the city rebuilt the damaged structure and removed the land portion, transforming a real estate advertisement into the symbol of an entire industry. Very few temporary construction projects accidentally become global icons. This one did. The Great Depression devastated construction across America. Hollywood slowed, but it never stopped. Think about that for a second. The entire country is in economic freefall, and Los Angeles is still pouring concrete. Throughout the 1930s, between 60 and 80 million Americans attended movie theaters every week. Studio profits continued flowing into Los Angeles real estate and architecture even during national collapse. Luxury hillside construction accelerated in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, and Holmby Hills. Architect Paul Williams designed roughly 20 major mansions across these districts, using reinforced concrete foundations, retaining walls, curving staircases, and elaborate terraced landscaping engineered into unstable hillsides. Then, the 1932 Summer Olympics triggered another infrastructure wave. The Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, originally completed in 1923, expanded to hold more than 75,000 spectators through additional reinforced concrete seating sections and extensive earthwork around the stadium. Roads were widened, hotels renovated. An Olympic Village was built from scratch in Baldwin Hills to house athletes from 37 nations. 3 years later, Griffith Observatory opened in 1935 after extensive grading operations on Mount Hollywood. Engineers stabilized the steep slopes before pouring concrete foundations for the observatory's Art Deco structure and rotating telescope domes. Even during economic collapse, Los Angeles kept physically expanding because Hollywood kept demanding more space, more roads, more houses, more theaters, more buildings. Construction never truly stopped. When World War II began, Los Angeles entered an even larger construction boom than the 1920s, but this time Hollywood was no longer the only industry reshaping the city. Aircraft factories, defense plants, shipyards, military housing, and transportation infrastructure transformed Southern California into one of the largest industrial construction zones in the United States. Between 1940 and 1950, Los Angeles County's population surged from roughly 2.8 million to over 4.1 million people as war workers flooded into the region. Lockheed expanded massive aircraft plants in Burbank. Douglas Aircraft enlarged production facilities in Santa Monica and Long Beach. Hughes Aircraft constructed giant manufacturing buildings with wide-span steel roofs capable of assembling military aircraft indoors. Many of these factories used blackout-painted roofs and camouflage netting to hide them from possible air attacks. Hollywood studios also physically adapted to wartime production. Sound stages were partially converted into military training facilities, propaganda production units, storage warehouses, and radio broadcasting spaces. Meanwhile, construction unions and studio craftsmen shifted into defense manufacturing, bringing Hollywood's expertise in fabrication, lighting, painting, welding, and set engineering directly into war production. The housing crisis became extreme. Developers rushed to build thousands of compact wartime homes using simplified wood frame construction and standardized floor plans to reduce material costs. Entire districts expanded outward almost continuously across the San Fernando Valley and surrounding suburbs. Then came the automobile revolution. In 1938, construction began on the Arroyo Seco Parkway between Los Angeles and Pasadena, widely considered America's first modern freeway. Engineers designed sweeping curves, grade-separated intersections, landscaped medians, and reinforced concrete bridges specifically for high-speed automobile traffic. The project permanently changed how Los Angeles would expand after the war. By the late 1940s, freeways, parking lots, drive-in restaurants, and sprawling suburban tracts were becoming the city's new architectural language. By 1950, Los Angeles barely resembled the city that existed before Hollywood arrived. The region had transformed into a vast horizontal metropolis built through non-stop construction over 3 decades. Studio backlots stretched for miles, freeways carved through neighborhoods, Art Deco towers rose beside theater palaces and neon boulevards, hillsides filled with retaining walls, staircases, luxury homes, and winding roads engineered directly into unstable terrain. Hollywood's influence extended far beyond filmmaking. The industry normalized large-scale set fabrication, rapid construction methods, decorative plaster production, scenic painting, lighting engineering, and illusion-based architecture. Thousands of craftsmen trained inside studio workshops later helped build real office towers, hotels, theaters, restaurants, and suburban developments throughout Southern California. By the early 1950s, Los Angeles County was issuing enormous volumes of residential permits annually as suburban expansion accelerated into areas like the San Fernando Valley, Lakewood, and Orange County. Developers used assembly line construction techniques where framing crews, roofing crews, electricians, and concrete workers moved house to house with industrial efficiency. Television then triggered another studio construction wave. New sound stages, broadcasting facilities, transmission towers, and production offices expanded across Hollywood as studios adapted to the new medium. What made Los Angeles different was speed. New York grew upward over centuries. Chicago rebuilt after disaster. But Los Angeles expanded outward almost all at once through coordinated waves of land grading, road building, utility installation, subdivision planning, and entertainment-driven investment. And honestly, that's the part that stayed with me while researching all of this. I went into this thinking Hollywood changed entertainment. But the deeper I looked, the more it felt like Hollywood had physically engineered an entire city around itself. Because when you really think about it, how many cities on Earth were reshaped by an industry built almost entirely on illusion? If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. I want to know from you, which city or era should I reconstruct next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. Thank you, and see you next time.